the other day at the yoga class we went to.
Yeah, she said she saw you.
Pretty feisty.
Who decided to update itself?
She said she was real glad to see people she knew there.
Yeah.
Just like 2
Yeah.
minutes ago, got-
Yeah, I think she knew a few people there, so that was
Okay.
She said she's going back.
good. Yeah, and they said, and the leader told her, "Oh, you're doing so good for being a first time, you know." So she was following all the directions and doing it good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I convinced Lois to go with her this next time.
Oh, okay.
Tracy's.
Yeah, yeah.
Intros.
Well, that'd be good.
Well, how about your dad? You go?
We're working on that.
Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Again, thanks everybody for your patience. Zoom decided to update itself on my computer just as I was getting things running here. So we're going to be stable and we started our recording. So I'll do a round of introductions. My name is Kelly Sheen. I'm the district manager for the Trinity County Resource Conservation District and part of the facilitation team. I'll hand off to Jim.
Yeah, Jim Spear, co-facilitator with Kelly.
I'm Susan Molyneux, public member of the collaborative.
Ross Molyneux, Susan's husband.
Pete Finney, Weaverville public member.
Mike McFadden, West Side Rec Officer.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Todd Johnson. I work over at the Shasta Lake office for the NRA for Sarah.
Thanks for being here. And I'll go to Zoom. Carol?
Carol Fall, North Lake person.
Thanks for being here, Carol. And Tara?
Good morning, everyone. Tara Jones, zooming in to you today. Appreciate getting to see everybody. And Kelly just found out that my acting last week and you did not tie in, so I'll be reaching out to you to get something on our calendar. So apologize for that swing and miss there.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, let's connect and we'll be able to catch up. That'd be great.
All right.
We also have somebody that's called in with the last numbers of 0724.
Yeah, this is Jim Dees. I'm the recreation manager in Mad River Ranger District. I'm traveling today, so I don't have my work computer. And when I try to Zoom on my phone, for some reason, nobody can hear me. So I decided to call in instead.
Great, Jim. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn over facilitation to Jim.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody. We are gonna kick off our agenda with BLM updates. I don't see a BLM rep. Good.
I do not.
Okay.
I'm hoping that it wasn't because we were late.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe they'll join us. So we'll skip BLM at this point and go to Forest Service Line Officer reports. So we have 6 rivers right up front. Jim, are you able to give us a report? I know you're traveling on the road.
Yeah, I can give you a report. I'm not a line officer
great.
for the record, but I'm happy to give you the report that I've got.
Okay.
So our summer plans are shaping up. We've got 3 hitches scheduled for the California Conservation Corps to come in and work some of our trails in the August complex footprint using disaster funding to restore some of the trails there. Last year, they restored our historic Red Mountain and Blue Jay Mine trails. We are still working with Wildlife and Heritage to see which trails we can get clearance for them to work this year. But we're starting, first one we've looked at is Clover Gulch for that. And we're going to try to add a couple. We picked Clover Gulch, 1, because it's in that area that needs work, and 2, because it's low enough elevation that depending on weather, hopefully it'll be our good starter trail in May. And then we can move further higher in elevation as the season goes on. So hopefully we'll get some good work out of them this year. We've also got some new agreements worked out with Watershed Training Center. And I didn't catch whether Jack or Josh are with us today, but they've been great. We've been working with them. I inherited a project from our fire fuel shop to do dozer line repair on the Ruth Hayfork Trail. And they've turned it over to me as a recreation project now. And we've agreed that basically what needs to happen is just to restore the recreation trail that got obliterated when they put the dozer line in during the fire. And so Watershed Training Center has agreed to take the money we've got to work on that, and they're going to come through and log out the trail, and then they're going to use their trail dozer to blast a hole through some of the invasive blackberry that's overgrown the trail since the forest canopy burned up. And that took a little while to get all the clearances for that, because we got to deal with noise disturbance and all the other things we have to do before we can bring in equipment like that. But we've got to go ahead, and so that's going to happen this summer. And only question is whether it'll happen after July, when nesting season is no longer a concern, or whether we'll get lops lifted sooner because they've been able to get in and verify whether there are nests in the area or not. So that's another project that's lined up and going ahead. And lastly, we did get our agreement executed and completed with Watershed Training Center to keep our YCC crew going. Last year we did direct hire, and we had a RAC funding to hire the crew ourselves, but that didn't work out this year. And, which was my fault. I got busy with fire season and I didn't get my proposal in on time. So, but we got some regional funding. We are working through Watershed Training Center. We're going to have our crew again this year, and I'll start recruiting soon for that. So that's been my busy life. Other than the one other thing that's been on our radar, Salt Creek Camp is a dispersed site in the southern end of our district, and it also has some fire damage and has some trees that are that need to come down. So we've been looking at the best practice process for getting those taken care of, including working with our heritage and wildlife folks. And we went out today and made sure that the caution signs for the burn area are visible in that camp. And I'm working right now on drawing up the plan and getting approval to go ahead and get those trees mitigated. And that's everything I've got.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Not seeing any, Jim. Thank you again for your report. Appreciate it. All right, up next, we have the Shasta Trinity. So Tara, are you?
All right, thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kick it over to Mike here in just a minute. Really appreciate one of the areas we've been most successful with our hiring has been in recreation, and we've got a lot of people, some more that just started. So Mike, I think we added, I just was there yesterday. Mike's gonna tell you how many people we've added recently, and we've got some more coming. So he'll give you the rundown on all things recreation. Go, Mike. Thanks for being there in person, bud. Appreciate it.
You're up, Mike.
Well, it's good that I knew that number off the top of my head. We're at 24 now. Wow. Up from 3.
Holy moly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's developed rec and trails. So some of those people are permanent seasonals, 18 and 8, so they have winters off, that kind of thing. But they're all permanent employees that will be returning year after year or just staying all year. So that's outstanding. It puts us almost to the number that the machine that you feed info into and it spits out, how many guys do you need to fix this? We're almost to that level of what the recommended staffing. So that's really cool. And then we're also still going to be picking up a couple of seasonals. So we'll be at 26 total for the year. But then as we go into the summer, we're going to also start doing our volunteer trips, and so those numbers are just going to snowball through the summer and then back down to the 24 next fall. So yeah, what have we been up to with all these people? Develop recreation stuff. Has anyone else been to Pine Cove or Lewiston Lake lately in the last week or two? We attacked it. I just was really concerned with the amount of fuel loading in the day use area, especially where the boat launch is. That if that was to get away, it would be really hard to catch it before it got into that trailer park. And so that was kind of a driver there was, okay, we're gonna make this happen. And so we partnered up with the Watershed Center, with the Resource Conservation District. We had some convicts out there working out of the, or inmates, I guess we're calling them. But we spent a good solid week out there with varying numbers. The big day, I think we had over 20 and we did a little barbecue, some hot dogs and stuff, but we ripped out all the blackberries and knocked down all the brush. We put in new picnic tables at Pine Cove. We put in new barrier rocks. So we're going to be having a little more, we upped our game at the non-motorized boat launch. I don't know who we've been battling, but somebody keeps pulling the barrier rocks out. And so we got a little medieval and put in some giant rocks and see how big their tractor or truck is. Kind of a fun game, I guess. If you can't beat them, have fun battling them. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was a group event. A lot of the agencies are in the area kicked in. And like I said, you know, the RCD folks and the Watershed folks were critical to that project with their chippers and, you know, just bodies on the ground. We're continuing with our hazard tree mitigation. We're falling hazard trees and trying to mitigate that problem all over the west side here. East Weaver is one of the ones that I'm afraid we're not gonna have any trees left. They're just dying. You know, I don't know what can you do? Most of those trees didn't really belong there to begin with. You know, we artificially allowed that to happen. And so now nature, I guess, is stabilizing woodland eventually. The Forest Glen guard station, that's one of the ones, the cabin there and stuff. We did have a big giant tree there that went, you know, it died and we had to take it down. And that's kind of a good example of what we're going to be doing more in our highly, you know, used areas where we've got these little pockets of green trees and a sea of black. Well, we're investing money on those. We're not gonna just chop them at the stump and send them into the existing vegetative screening. So we've got some partnership stuff with the Watershed Center to hire local arborists, you know, when we need it, instead of us having to put together contracts and all this, we've kind of got it grease the skid so we can say, okay, we need a top-down removal in Campground Z, and they can just make it happen. And then, you know, our local folks get some work and we have a safe campground again, and we don't destroy all the good, nice broadleafs that are next to those dead trees. So that should help. Just did an upgrade on the Denny campground. Actually, there's 2 guys in there finishing that up today. New fire rings, new bear lockers, and a bunch of trees hitting the ground there. We replaced the tannery gate lately. It's a double gate, and that was a fun one to fix. And we also did the Alpine gate. I don't know if you guys saw that for the Alpine campground. The snow had just kept pushing it, and it was touching the ground. You couldn't hardly get your hand in there to put the key. So we ripped it out and rebuilt it and put it back together. And so that's functioning again. And while we were out there, we had the crews do a lot of chipping on those roads and to the boat launch. And we're going to continue to try to get that kind of work done. More and more chipping and brushing along our access roads to our boat ramps and campgrounds. The trail stuff that's been going on lately is the big one that stands out, and I was showing pictures just a minute ago, is having that RCD fuel crew going in and working for Robbie. Directed that work along the Ware ditch, which is, you know, kind of a sad situation there. There's a ton of conifers that died there, and we've been working on it for years, and it got to the point where, all right, the rest of them died. So for 3 or 4 years, we cut half the trees down, and then this last fall, we cut the rest of them down. And they're all piled and bucked up, and it looks really as nice as it can look. And I think a lot of those folks that live near the airport and above the airport, that whole side of town should feel a little better knowing that there's a nice fuel break between them and the forest now. And it ties right into where our fuels guys had gone in and done their mastication 10 years ago, and then a broad cast burn just 2 years ago. So I think we're doing pretty good up there as far as trails go and fuels related to trails. The CV ditch trail is nearly complete. people are using it now. Jack might touch on this in a minute when his report, but they blasted out a rock that was a big problem. And the only part of that trail left is that needs work is on the SPI ground. It's an old haul road and it's kind of soft. And once that gets dialed in, the trail will be in great shape. And, you know, once again, we really do appreciate SPI's willingness to work with the public and allow them that access to that chunk, because they don't have to do that. That's private property. And so that's really cool that they're allowing that to happen again in many places. And then kind of to complement some of the work we did out at Lewiston Lake, in the sites, we've also had the inmate crews working on that trail out there that's along the lake shore. And that's kind of what we've been up to recently. And yeah, next report, I'll have another pile of stuff to tell you, because we got a bunch of bodies working this.
There you go. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Any questions for? Yeah.
Ware Ditch Trail improvements, sorry, I'm sitting right next to him, my apologies. Ware Ditch Trail improvements, there's that culvert right at the Ware Ditch spur that
Mhm.
keeps getting plugged up. Is there a plan for replacing that and making something bigger?
No.
Okay.
I think the big problem is downstream from that culvert, we still have a lot of bark and brush in the ditch. And so we need to get a little more of that material out so that it quits backing up to the culvert. But then on the long run, because if we were to rip that culvert out and replace it, it's going to require NEPA. What we did have that crew do is completely clean that ditch out as if it was going to be operable again, because what we were having problems with is all the branches and bark falling into the ditch, plugging the ditch, and then the water overtopping the ditch berm wherever it could, which was causing erosion concerns. So we've got that ditch completely gutted out to the culvert. We'd like to go a little further with it so the culvert will quit flooding. But the next stage is we need to put together a breach plan to where we strategically pick spots in that ditch where we remove the ditch berm down to a certain level, harden it. And that's generally going to be wherever there's V notches coming into the ditch and feeding the ditch. Because at this point, it's no longer connected to East Weaver Creek, but all the little feeder streams that are coming down that hill, they all pour into that ditch. And then by the time it makes it to that culvert, there's a lot of volume there. So we just need to bleed the pressure in a few places, and then the culvert will not be an issue anymore.
Sounds great.
All right, Pete.
My question at the Fairview boat ramp and all that Scotch broom that's along the road and it's invaded the parking areas, is that got a plan to at least set it back? I know.
Well, there's actually a guy going out there today to scratch his head a little on that, because what I understand there's also some conifers coming up through the pavement.
Yeah, there's redbud between the curb and the asphalt. It's, you know, and it's just a maintenance problem. Once it got whacked, it'd keep pushing that
Yeah.
asphalt like it's trying to do.
Well, Logan's out there today scratching his head and trying to get some photos, and then we can put it in our priority. But you know, it wasn't that long ago, we ripped out all the Scotch broom and it came back quicker than ever. And so I don't know where that sits on the priority list. It's on our radar,
Yeah.
but it's not going to happen this week.
Yeah.
Probably not next week, but it's definitely on our radar of trying to figure out how we can get a handle on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
because the lake's sitting at 42 feet this morning. So the other one would be the Stewart's Fork ramp. It's probably got a pretty good shot of some type of utilization, depending on how high the lake gets. There's two exotics that have gotten established on the north side, the northwest side of the ramp, about halfway down. And they're something from someplace else that got established in there. And the limbs are a third of the way out into the boat launch area. And it'd be good to get those removed.
It's fair to say that we're gonna have to do maintenance in areas we haven't had to do maintenance in for the last, 3 years, because the lake's gonna have that much more use. So I appreciate and Mike appreciates you guys giving us these kind of heads up and give us a place to go get after it. And we, like I said, I'm super happy with the road brushing that's been done and the work that we've done so far. And you guys tipping us off to our next mission is super helpful. So thank you for that. And we do know we had a meeting with our botanist to talk about the noxious weed situation. And trying to get a plan put together to try and get that stuff mitigated. But like Mike said, it's definitely the weeds are robust. We'll just put it that way, and hardy. I think that's why can't you get some of those weak, pathetic weeds that just like, melt when you look at them sideways? So, yeah, it's very discouraging to see all the Scotch broom that's popping up all over the place, but we'll put these other things on our hit list and get our folks after it as quick as we can, certainly before rec season opens up.
And I need to do a little more research now that it's becoming a reality, but I don't know that we can open the Stewart Fork boat launch. It's undercut.
Yeah,
It depends on how high the lake gets, obviously,
that's true.
because those K rails are at the bottom.
Yeah,
And if that lake gets up, there should be some consideration to moving those because those could be a real hazard.
Yeah.
Once the water gets up
yeah,
over them.
yeah. And so yeah, I gotta get my head around this, how that could happen, because we could move the K rails up the ramp.
Yeah, something will happen.
And then at some point, then the ramp could open, but that's gonna be a tricky proposition and a big chunk of concrete to move around.
See, and we're kind of fortunate, as we're talking about the Stewart's Fork ramp, that Caltrans has gone in there and you've seen all last summer armored the bridge abutment. That's forcing that current to the southeast and getting over. It has the potential to cut through all that sediment and get back in the old channel. And with that in mind, there's $75,000 still sitting in boating and waterways grant funding for that ramp. When Sarah, we had the Minersville review up there at Trinity Center last week. I talked to Karen Dills, the chief of the loans and grants department for boating and waterways, and she said that $75,000 is still available. So,
For that specific ramp?
yep, that was appropriated years ago for Stewart's Fork. And kind of, there's been a lot of opinions as to what we should or shouldn't do there because of the undercutting. But now that Caltrans is in the project, they've stockpiled a lot more rock right there in the turn at Tannery. And that's going to go in to shore up that bridge abutment more. So that's going to deflect that water completely away from that ramp. And
Yeah, maybe I'll talk to Joe and see if he can stuff a few rocks under the end of that.
well, ideally it'd be to put the gabions in there and then some concrete work, big boulders at the end of that and keep that water away from that ramp. And it's encouraging because I think of the latest court decision on the Westlands irrigation district. And I don't know all the details, but they did invalidate that contract. So
Wow.
I think it's kind of up in the air how much water we're going to get and keep in Trinity with that court case just 2 weeks ago getting implemented.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh.
Carol, your hand is up?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is my question or NRA question, but just a couple quick things. So when I was going down to the Minersville boat ramp, there are trees across the road and across the upland parking area, that fell down. So, when you're talking about, clearing the roads, I don't know if that's an NRA thing or a Shasta Trinity thing, but yeah, anyway, there's trees down. And then, did you get a chance to look at Preacher Meadow? We had asked last couple of meetings about the repairs for the bathrooms there.
Yeah, Cliff and I went out and looked and it's on our radar. And we also want to not just fix the door, but he and I are arguing. He wants to vibratory plate in some gravel and I want to put blacktop down. He says we don't have enough money, but we're going to find the money. I think it'll look a lot nicer with a nice blacktop apron around it. But yeah, we're going to get that door fixed. We can start working from there.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, I'm aware of those trees that are down. Cliff and I did a recon of around the lake when I came up for the meeting. I know that tree actually came off SPI. Cliff was going to get with SPI and we're going to get some of that cleaned up. Also, so when we're talking maintenance, like trees that are down, fuels work that needs to get done, that's squarely, in the TRMU lane. You know, we're happy to do those things. We kind of deal with the basic maintenance. We start talking about facilities or, access, those kinds of things. That goes back to today, Todd Johnson, who's in the room there with you. I saw him taking notes. That's all I can see of him is his notepad in his hand. And I was like, oh, Todd's taking notes. So there he is. So he will, he'll take that information back and we'll get with engineering, and that's who would be, you know, tracking that $75,000 and all of those kinds of things. So I know it's confusing for people, how we're kind of split up and who does what around the lake, but generally the maintenance side of it, you know, general cleanup stuff, if it's not the concessionaire, that's our rec staff. But when you start talking facilities, improvements, those kinds of things, then it goes back over to the NRA group. Is that clear as mud? I'm sure, because I have to make notes for myself.
Thank you, Tara. Any questions? Mike, any more? Tara, any more? Okay,
I got a question.
okay, we got a question.
You said the SPI was allowed you on the property to do some work. Are they more friendly now? They haven't been friendly in the past, like 2015 when we had to build a mile of trail because they wouldn't let us cross their. So do you see them being more friendly or more neighborly, or what is there?
I don't know that they're more or less friendly or not. I've always had good interactions with SPI, and,
Yeah.
you know, and I continue to tell people that say SPI shouldn't shut their gate. It's like, that's their private property. You're lucky you get to go there at all. But yeah, it wasn't any big friction point. We got a letter written that said that the CV ditch trail could cross that piece of ground there. And
Okay.
yeah, and I do know that Heath has been talking about doing right of ways, actual right of ways. And so that's a big step.
For the trails.
Yeah,
Wow.
That is a big, that's really big.
yeah. And so
Right away is
Take a minute.
time immemorial.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And also that SPI, their corporate rules, they place they're willing to give back 10% of the money that they make in an area, give back to the community. So that's an opportunity for grants that hasn't been looked into. But they do have that thing going on. I know they take money out of here. That's it.
The Watershed Center has gotten some money in the past from SPI, from the Sierra Pacific Foundation, mostly related to our youth programs, because those are notoriously difficult to fund. It's something we've tapped into in small little amounts here and there, but nothing huge, if that's what you're thinking of at the moment.
I'm thinking of something huge. We'd like.
The pot of gold.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had asked for money from them to build our fire station, and they had promised a huge chunk of money, and then it boiled down to $1,500.
Oh.
So it was pretty, they were actually embarrassed that that's all they gave us.
Okay, Todd, I think the NRA is up.
Okay, so I do have some project updates. So our top priority right now is the Trinity camps, which is the thinning in and around a bunch of the campgrounds along Trinity Lake. We are currently wrapping up our NEPA, the section 106, which is the archaeology clearance, and the Endangered Species Act section 7 consultations are complete. There was a new Forest Service wide old growth review kind of hurdle that got thrown in last minute that we did not expect, but it did cause us to have to write up a justification for the project and explanation, and that all went all the way up through the regional Washington office levels, and that's been approved. So that process is complete. There are approximately 150 acres that are near Hayward Flat campground that are sample marked. So if you go out there, I know the gate's locked right now, but this spring, if you're out there, the trees that are marked in blue paint are the ones that would be cut and removed. So you can kind of get a feel for, you know, what's gonna go, what's gonna be left, which is to me a lot more visually, you can make sense of that in your head much more than a description of, you know, a prescription written down on paper. So that's been helpful for a lot of folks. Priorities for order of operation as far as when we, you know, what order we would start the actual work would be primarily focused around, you know, public risk and, you know, where we're seeing lots of mortality. We hope to offer the first timber sales in the Ridgeville community area. So that's that piece that's, you know, kind of the borders that community between the lake and Ridgeville, the Trinity Center Airport and Hayward Flat Campground. So that's where we're looking to offer the first timber sales. And that would probably be, you know, later this fiscal year. The three highest use campgrounds in that project are Tannery, Bushy Tail, and Hayward Flat. And what we're trying to do is avoid having multiple ones of those closed in the same recreation season. So we're trying to spread out so that people have a, you know, a place to camp and not limit that too much. And the plan is to have the NEPA decision signed by the end of next month. So that's where Trinity Camps is at. Some updates on Trinity Center Airport. So there's a lot of trees that are, you know, flight hazards for the approach and departure. I think most of the approach on the north end of the airport runway, and that's going to be, those trees will be addressed in the Trinity Camps NEPA. And then there's additional trees and fuel loading that's down around the hangars, kind of the southeast portion of the airport. And our forester, Todd Hamilton, has been working with David Colbeck from the county to get a proposal finalized. And the plan is that the Forest Service would issue a letter authorizing the removal of that. So we think that can be done pretty straightforward under the airport's permit. And then we're in the very initial stages of the North Trinity County Community Risk Reduction Project, which some folks have referred to as Highway 3. So that's kind of that, kind of a mouthful. So Highway 3, if that's easier, but so that's again in the early stages. You know, we did have a field trip back in December, I think, to kind of just look at that and the Bowerman project, but you know, appreciate the participation from the collaborative and community to provide some, you know, input into that. There's going to be more field trips to come. They're not scheduled yet, but I expect, you know, this spring things become more accessible. And again, we do appreciate the ability to get that input early in the planning process to incorporate those suggestions. And our forester is working on drafting, you know, kind of a preliminary proposed action. It's going to be a lot of, you know, linear fuel breaks along, you know, roads, ridges, ingress, egress, adjacent to communities, and then some area-based, you know, more kind of forest health and fuel reduction type thinnings. That's really going to be focused around, primarily around the communities. For staffing updates, we don't have any new permanent hires. We do have 2 folks that are going to be on 4-month details to the NRA. So Joe Stubendick has been selected as the NRA program manager, and that position is going to have responsibility for recreation, special uses, and fiscal management. And Joe's going to be continuing to coordinate with, you know, Mike and Cliff over here, who basically will be the leads still for, you know, that kind of operational recreation stuff on the Trinity unit. And then Tim Ritchie, who works over here for Terra, as a fuels officer, he's going to be coming over to fill our district fire management officer position for the next 4 months out of Shasta Lake. So happy to get Tim. Those are the updates for that.
Very good. Thank you very much, Todd. Any questions for Todd?
Yes, on Clark Springs boat ramp, we'd like to see that gate unlocked and get the boat launch in. The water's up halfway up the ramp.
Okay.
And Shasta Rec been real happy to take our $60 permits, and we got to beat on them every year to get those facilities, in the water.
Okay, I can follow up on that. Yeah, I don't know what their season of operation is. I don't think that's been in the,
It kicks in January 1,
okay.
so.
So, can you tell me which boat docks are in?
Docks?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know Minersville was in, and I don't know about Trinity Center, if that's in or not.
Well, it, it was in, but, when the lake came up, the chain that holds it was pulling one end of the boat dock down. So people were worried that the boat dock was gonna be underwater.
Okay,
And then, Bowerman, do you know, so Bowerman is now accessible. Do you know if the Bowerman dock is in?
I do not.
No.
Mike is shaking his head in the negative.
Okay, just because as the lake comes up, and people start dispersing to the other boat ramps, it would be really good to have those other docks in. So people aren't trying to, push their boat just into the water without, having any real, decent access.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know those courtesy docks are very helpful, especially in the cool weather, so.
And then I guess you're gonna give an update about the Trinity Center Marina later?
Yeah, I think that's later in the agenda, but yeah, that's on the notes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
But the Fairview dock is in.
Oh, Fairview's in, okay.
All right, anything else for Todd before we move on to boat ramp? So I think you're probably up, right, Todd, on NRA boat ramps, marinas?
Yeah, I think so. So I do know there was a public meeting here recently, I think at the end of February. So appreciate that, all the input that was received there. As far as, where we're at in the process, I think we're at the, we got the 30% design. The next step is to have a meeting with Division of Boating and Waterways to discuss the input that was received on that design from the public and any potential changes to that design. We are looking at ways to address the concerns that were brought up in that meeting, especially as in regards to the parking. So Sarah is going to be asking, well, she's reached out to the water board to schedule a meeting to talk about the, below high water parking lot options for that. So that meeting is not, I don't think that's been finalized, but that is in the plans for that meeting to happen. And those 30, 60, 90, 100% designs are related, more to engineering requirements that are just part of that DBW grant process, and they do have to approve those plans at each stage. So that's just kind of the system we're working under. So right now we're between the 30 and 60%. So it is a good time to incorporate, the feedback that we received from the public. And the engineering contractor we're working with on the designs is called, I don't know if it's TIPA or TEPA, but TIPA Companies. They're a construction and engineering firm that's actually owned by the Paskenta Band of Nomlaki Indians, which is in the Corning area. So that was kind of interesting, but that's kind of where we're at is, Sarah's hoping to get a meeting scheduled with the water board to discuss the below high water parking option.
All right, any questions for Todd on the Minersville boat ramp status?
No, just to say, it was a good meeting. There were a lot of people there. People seemed generally happy with the design of the boat ramp itself, although there were, some minor comments, but it's going to have a lot longer dock, like a 60-foot dock. It's going to have a new cable system to kind of move the dock up and down with lake levels. Yeah, the main concern was that you're eliminating the parking below the high water line. And since it's only used during low water, that means a lot of people that currently use it won't be able to use it in the future because they can't hike up and down, 300 yards to get to the ramp when it's down at where the lake is usually. So anyway, it was a good meeting.
Okay, yeah, I think, yeah, we fully understand that, the logistics of having the parking so far away from the ramp when it's, when it's a usable ramp. So, yeah, hopefully we can work out a solution that works for folks.
Okay.
Jim, the discussions up there with the engineers too, just so some of us folks can be privy to that, was looking at doing a center boat dock location so that we could widen the ramp to get it to 2 lanes. Because in fact, if we have to walk way up the hill to park, when it's in a low water situation, it would be more accommodating to be able to put 2 boats either loading, unloading on that ramp at the same time instead of just a single lane. And it's something that I wanted to bring up with the Bureau of Reclamation because they've had to have heavy equipment out there to do maintenance work on the glory hole and some of that on the dam, is to see if what we're doing there will accommodate their heavy equipment and not do any damage to that ramp.
Right.
And there could be a possibility of some funding from BOR to help us with getting that ramp maybe a little wider.
Yeah, they have a huge barge that they have to put in to go maintain the glory hole.
Okay.
One of the other issues that came up, and it might be something that this committee and the collaborative would forward to Caltrans, and I talked to Carol about it up there, is that turn lane coming down into the Minersville boat ramp as you exit the ramp road. That's kind of a blind turn right there, that through cut as northbound traffic's coming down Highway 3. And if there's somebody from Trinity Center wanting to turn in there, it's just a matter of time before there's a serious accident there. And there's a waste area immediately adjacent on the south side of Highway 3 that Caltrans has been using over the years to take excess slide material and stuff and put it in there. And that cut bank, there's not even any trees on it. We could daylight that, get a turn lane in that southbound lane of Highway 3, and even a turn lane as you come in from the Weaverville side to west, and just make that a much safer intersection. It's also the trailhead there going up to Stonewall and some of that. So there's enough activity out there that would warrant realignment of that turn. And we're not talking about taking a huge hillside down. We're just talking about moving that cut bank over, similar to what was done at the top of Slate Creek when the Highway 3 went out there quite a few years ago. They moved that big cut bank back, and basically what we're talking about doing. So I think in the sense of a safe egress on and off of Highway 3, that Caltrans could use some of our tax dollars up there from fuel tax to make that a safer approach.
And someone's initiated that?
No.
Okay,
Not that.
that's what you're saying, that
We'd like to, even with the Board of Supervisors making that recommendation, that Caltrans put their engineers out there and take a look at that and see if they can appropriate some money to maybe make that just a little safer intersection in the future.
very good. Okay, up next, we've got the access road to the Minersville boat ramp.
Okay. So other than the trees recently, that road was built on a geologically unstable area. You know, anybody's been out there can see that road's, just slowly subsiding. So you got the, speed bumps there in the road with the, just kind of trying to patch that, keep it functional. I think the plan is do the work on the ramp and then fix the road. So, the engineers were concerned that if we fix the road now, we're gonna, probably tear it up with heavy equipment and all the construction materials, getting them out there. So that is the current plan, is to do the ramp work and then repair the road. So.
Okay.
They have requested, engineering has requested funds to be able to do that. And we were told that the road, like DBW does not fund road work, so that money's gonna have to come from some other source. So our engineers have asked for, funding for that.
All right, any questions for Todd on that?
Yeah, one item that was expressed up there, just because of the instability of that road, is to possibly, as you come down the access road, right there at that big through cut, is to utilize the south exposure, west exposure, and drop that in to the asphalted gated concrete, or not concrete, but asphalt area currently exists above the campground right there.
Okay.
Take a look at it. I mean, it might be cheaper to do that because that south exposure, there's the instability doesn't appear to be nearly as bad as all those rotational slumps that are right there forcing that road to come down the hill.
Yeah, yeah, we could get our engineers. I mean, we do have road engineers.
Yeah, just take a look at it, see if it's possible. That eliminates all that water that's carried from that through cut clear on down to the next turn.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently they knew about that instability when they built that campground back. There was reports, I guess. I haven't read them, but it's been kind of known that that was a problem area.
Yeah, those old growth trees are leaning at a 35% lean, so it's pretty obvious the ground's pretty unstable.
Okay.
But something just to look at, because if it's, $600,000-700,000 to do some work, it's only going to be temporary, because you're just not going to get to the toe of those rotational slides out there.
Any more on the access road? Okay, not seeing any. Marina houseboat permitting, Todd, you got anything on that?
I do have some general information about it. So and then, yeah, any questions folks had, I wasn't sure how specific folks' interests were, but probably most folks know there's two marinas on Trinity Lake, Cedar Stalk Marina and Trinity Alps Marina, that have permitted houseboats. There are currently 99 permitted privately owned houseboats on Trinity Lake. Since 2019, so in the last 5 years, that number has gone down by 2 that were closed, by the permit holders that were just no longer interested in having a boat. Cedar Stalk Marina has 7 commercial houseboats, the rental fleet that's going to be utilized this season. Their max allocation is 10 commercial vessels, so they're using 7 out of 10. Trinity Alps Marina has 14 commercial houseboats. They're going to be utilized this season, and their allocation is 25.
So the 99, is that a fixed number? They're not adding?
So, no. Yeah, and I don't know all the history of how they arrived at 99, whatever it was. I did speak with Amber Machado. She's our special use permit administrator that handles the houseboat stuff on Trinity.
Because it was 101, right? Now it's 99.
Must have been 101, yeah, at some
Some
point.
policy not to
So,
renew when some permits are just kind of walked away from, or?
so that is the policy as I understand it, if a person is no longer interested and is not interested in transferring it or selling it or anything, that permit is,
Gone.
that's it. Yeah, that's lost. And so Amber does work really hard with folks that, might be, wanting to get out of the business, or maybe the, person who owned it died or whatever, to get those transferred to new owners. So it's kind of a clunky system, it
Yeah.
seems like. That's kind of the system, as I understand it, that we have. So
Carol, you've got a question?
Yeah, just to maybe update Todd. So this has been something that the Recreation Committee's been asking to resolve for probably 10 years?
Mhm.
Where right now the houseboats are considered an exclusive use. And so, yeah, when someone's lease essentially expires, then that use goes away. And so the Recreation Committee went back through all the Federal Register and never found where the Forest Service made that decision. It's just evidently a undocumented decision. And so we have asked in the past to meet with the forest supervisor and Sarah to have them reconsider that. Kelly can probably give you more of a technical update, but we're essentially asking to not have them be exclusive use and to keep the max so that it doesn't whittle away over time. I know with this last snowstorm, people were out there shoveling all the snow off the houseboats because if they sink, then essentially that permit goes away. So anyway, that's the issue. It's more of a, how do we get the Forest Service to change that policy decision?
Hey, Carol, I'm just curious, is that a Shasta Trinity policy, or is that a forest-wide policy, this exclusive use and that?
It's, as far as I understand, it's a Shasta Trinity policy.
Oh,
Flaming Gorge, which is the other Forest Service NRA, doesn't have that policy. And so, yeah, that's the concern, is that, 101 houseboats on Trinity Lake is nothing. And
Right.
so, to slowly lose that number is a concern. Paul Hooser is a lot better. He's a lot more articulate than I am on this, but that's why we kind of wanted to have it on the agenda, was to keep it on the radar.
and so you referenced, Carol, too, that a meeting was requested, so was it denied, or was it just never heard back from, or never?
Sarah was going to meet, we were going to meet with Sarah, then Sarah was going to meet with Rachel. And I don't think, Sarah hasn't been attending these, so it just hasn't happened.
What's the history there? How long does that go back in terms of the dialogue or the request? Or the
Kelly, help me out here. It's been at least a year, right?
It's been even longer than that.
Yeah.
I think when we first started talking about this in earnest, probably almost 4 or 5 years ago. And what we were told was that there was at a certain point a decision that was made that was signed off by one of Rachel's predecessors, that basically there was an analysis that was done both on the NRA as a total. And so Shasta Lake had a certain number of houseboats that were, ascribed to it, and Trinity had a certain number. And they basically sort of split that number in half for Trinity. It was like 200 total or something to that effect. And like half of that was for private licenses for houseboats, and the other half was given to the marinas to maintain rental houseboats. And part of the discussion that we were having was, well, this doesn't seem to be a forest issue. This seems to be like specific to the NRA and the Shasta Trinity. And that this decision that was signed off by Sharon Haywood, if I'm not mistaken, was sort of arrived at sort of internally. And then basically this decision was signed off and they said, well, these are the procedures that we follow. If there is no continuity for the licensing that, you know, was initially given for the private licenses, then those would be lost to attrition over time. And one of the things that Paul had brought up was, well, we don't really see 100 rentals going out at any given time. That seems like it's sort of excessive, but because it's fixed, you know, could there be some decision that Rachel could make that would sort of, you know, sort of augment or supersede that particular decision, so that at least if the analysis was that Trinity Lake can only have 200 boats on it at any given time, then why can't that number be flexible? And, you know, like if there are more people that want to have a personal houseboat on the lake, say 125 or 150, why couldn't we reduce the number of rentals and then have that sort of be at least available to, you know, as licenses for on the private side? That was something that we had talked with Sarah early on when she was first working, when she first took on the ranger position. And I don't know how it tracks.
Pre-COVID.
It was
Pre-COVID, yeah, and they kind of fell off the radar during COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was sort of like some of the context of that. And then I think it just sort of dropped off the radar during COVID.
And just to put it in context, so by treating the houseboats as a exclusive use, they're treated the same way as a cabin in the Forest Service that has a 99-year lease. You know, at the end of that 99-year lease, whoever has that cabin, you know, they can't use it anymore because it's in a fixed spot, you know, and it has a certain, you know, environmental impact. But, you know, to treat a houseboat, which is floating around the lake, as an exclusive use is just kind of, we thought, inappropriate. Just not relevant. Anyway, so that's the issue. So I guess, I don't know if we just try to put it back on Sarah's radar to meet with her and give her all the background and then have her go to Rachel again, or for the first time.
Yeah, I
Is that something you could?
I can bring that back to Sarah. Yeah, she is aware of this issue and concern. So yeah, I can bring that back to her. And yeah, if a meeting is what the next step is, then see about getting that arranged.
Cool. All right.
I'd like to add, you know, that brings in a lot of money to the county, the fuel that they use when they load it up and the cases of beer that go on and the food that comes to the market and stuff, you know, that's a lot of money. That's more than one parking permit or something for the backcountry use, you know. So it's a lot of money for the community.
Well, and it's the backbone of like the repair, you know, like at Trinity Center, you know, where they pull them out and work on them. I mean, if that use goes away, then a lot of the ancillary uses, like the little boat repair guys, go away because they rely on the houseboats to be their main source of income.
Yeah, Jim, one of the other things I think Paul had brought up in the past is the indirect effect it has on services, because you start losing those mortgage fees, referring to the marinas. There used to be 5, now there's 2, that starts to go away. Then those services on the lake start to deteriorate. The fuel and as has been mentioned, just the ancillary type incidentals, from food to beverages to repairs. So it's something that needs to be considered. It's a very short season on Trinity, and that anything we do to take away from a revenue source for those private marinas can have some serious consequences.
And less use.
And
The services don't exist, then less people are interested in coming.
Which kind of leads us to the Trinity Center Marina. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am curious, though, Carol, just in terms of the history too. Has the Board of Supervisors ever been kind of brought in on this? I mean, clearly this is kind of an economic development chamber kind of issue, right? Tourism, all that. Is that?
I don't remember. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, Trinity Center Marina, seasonal use. Todd.
Okay. So the Forest Service has to add this to the agenda based on concern about, services in the north part of the lake. We heard that the marine operator was not planning to operate out of Trinity Center boat ramp this summer. That marina is permitted for, moorage for 80 boats, retail store, boat fuel, and eight rental boats. Like small rental boats, I think, patio boats and ski boats and stuff like that. The Forest Service, and it's been connected in the past to the Forest Service facilities, which are the public boat ramp, parking area, bathroom, at Trinity Center boat ramp. I think the season of operation is May through October. What's in their permit? The Forest Service wants to have those services available in the North Lake area. It's, a long ways down to the south end to get those things if you're on the lake, wanting to stay at the north end. The marine owners are permitted that use, and the Forest Service is going to encourage them to use it. And, we're currently going to be having conversations with marine owners about this issue and trying to work out some resolution. They're making, sounds like a business decision that they don't think it's going to be profitable. Maybe I think a sublease of their operation to another entity might be, I think that's allowed under the permit, and whether someone else would be interested in taking that on. Those are things that are going to have to be worked out. But I think the point was that, we have become aware of this. It hasn't been an issue the last couple of years because the lake's been down, that ramp hasn't been in the water, then the marina hasn't been up there, so.
And this is as I understood it from Sarah, when she spoke with me about this earlier this week, this is the Cedar Stock. The people that are owners or operators at Cedar Stock are the folks that are making this decision.
Correct.
Because it's not the concessionaires so much that manage the campgrounds. It's actually the marina.
So they have a permit for both.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The Trinity Center is part of Cedar Stock.
Has it always been connected that way?
I don't know.
No.
I didn't think
No,
so.
it was separate at one.
No, it was separate. So does the Forest Service have any, do
Under? What?
you guys have any leverage? I mean, this is really a big issue in the North Lake that, Cedar Stock is really hard, to get gas from and stuff. So, we really want that marina back, with the gas pumps. Cedar Stock, again, you got to go pay to use the ramp. You got to go pay to park, and so you have this beautiful new facility in Trinity Center, and it's just sitting there because the marina with the gas pumps and all that stuff, the docks, is not there. So, I mean, really curious what you guys can do to kind of get that going again.
Right. Yeah. We're going to work with the marine owners to see if we can reach some kind of resolution. Yeah.
I mean, can you tell them you can't do Cedar Stock unless you do both? I mean, what kind of contractual obligation do they have?
I can't answer that question. I don't know if it's an option in their permit or if it's a requirement of their permit.
Why can't the Forest Service operate the marina, not have a concessionaire?
Oh, that's a whole.
That's a question I can't answer.
These guys will be out there on the lake.
I didn't really expect an answer.
Pick me, pick me. I want to go.
Yeah, you want to go?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this gets back to the whole economic impact, Trinity Center, the whole town relies on fishing and access to the lake. And so this is a big part of our economy that's been struggling for years because, you know, you couldn't get to the lake. Well, now the lake is there and the services aren't there. It's just really, people up here are really unhappy. Let me just say that.
And
Yeah.
so I'm gonna go ahead and jump in here for Todd a little bit because Sarah and I have had the same conversation and we are both well aware of the frustrations and whatever tools that we have in that permit, Carol, we're looking really hard at with our permit specialists and everyone that kind of works through those when you have some kind of a dispute or a disagreement. So we're working through that to look to see what we can do to meet those needs. It's not lost on us. It's really obvious. It is a beautiful facility. You're 100% right. I understand the frustration and I know Sarah does as well. And then Jim, to your point about the houseboats, one thing that I've been really, and Sarah, we've been really happy with is the level of collaboration with this group as well as the Trinity Collaborative group as a whole. So Todd and I will talk with Sarah, let them know there's a request to get that the houseboat issue back on the calendar, get a meeting put together. Because honestly, when I first got here, there was a lot of letter writing going on and not a lot of action. And so I really want to, you know, I know Sarah's responsive. We had these concerns about Minersville. And so we had a public meeting and made a point to get up there. So if we can, Todd will get the word back to Sarah that we really want to pick that up again, get that meeting going, and we'll get it scheduled. And I would say probably having a really meaty update for you for what we've done, what we've looked into, what we know before our next rec subcommittee meeting, if that works for the group. You don't need to give us I guess my point is, I don't need a letter from the Board of Supervisors telling me it's important to this group. I understand from this group it's important, and that's all I need, and that's all Sarah needs.
Cool. Very good. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Yeah, Jim, one
Yeah, Pete.
point of clarification up there. When Forever Resorts had the marina at Cedar Stock and the one at Trinity Center, they were required to improve their fuel holding and distribution system. And so at the time, I believe they spent a little over $100,000 for the fuel barge that they would take up and put it in at Trinity Center. So in that fuel barge is still operational, but it stays at Cedar Stock. They bring it back down when they close the season up there and take it clear to the other end of the lake, which is probably 23 miles or something like that by water. But that fuel dispensing barge is still available on, and like Carol says, that's really a critical component of the North Lake is not having fuel and condiments and all the other stuff there at that floating marina. And I'm not sure if it's back down at Cedar Stock or not. I would assume it is that, or they moved it over to Frethi to in that deeper water there to moor it. But those critical components of a marina are available. It's just how do we get them back into service?
Carol, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was wondering, can I have a quick go back for just the general NRA stuff before you get into the other agenda items? So I just want to put in a plug for trails for the North Lake, just so you guys know. You know, the elementary school up here has a mountain bike club. They were just competing down in Monterey. They're headed to Exchequer next month. So you have a bunch of kids up here trying to use the trails, and there's no trails, right? So what I've been dealing with is I have dads who are designing user-built trails, And so, I'm trying to fend them off. Like, you can't do that, but I mean, they really want to have some place for the kids to ride, to train. So, I asked Sarah at the partners meeting if that could be part of the, North Trinity Communities, NEPA, and she said no. That would be too divergent from the rest of the project. So, anyway, if there's any way that the NRA or Shasta Trinity can think about a way to put in some little trails for the kids up here. Right now, all the emphasis is on Weaverville. You guys have amazing trails. And Hayfork now has, Ewing Reservoir. Up here, we have the short stretch of the Lakeshore Trail. That's it. And, zero progress on the rest of the trail around the lake. So, anyway, that's my short plea. So, okay, I'll shut up.
I'd like to add to that because I've been up there in Trinity Center and counted the hikers and walkers that just live in the community. And I counted like a minimum of 8 walkers out in every morning, and maximum days they had 20 walkers. Well, there you already have an ingrained population to use the trails and everything. A nice trail that went completely around the lake is an idea that we haven't talked about for a while. But trails and around the lake and by the marina, my vision of the trail would be at the just below the high water mark or at the high water mark because it's so steep, the bank from there to like Bowerman Meadows or someplace. And so it would be usable. It would be there and be usable for everyone. But
well, right now the dads are working on a trail that goes from the boat ramp, through the woods. It's above the high water level. It's in the woods. But I mean, and I'm like, you can't do that. You don't have NEPA. But anyway, just so you guys know, I mean, there's like Ross said, I mean, we have hiking groups here that hike every morning. They go down to Norwegian Meadow. They do a whole like 4-mile loop. Most of it's on the power line or SPI, but yeah, I mean, can we have some trails?
SCI is a problem there. That's why I stayed down towards the lake because they said absolutely no trail to be built on their property. And that's probably because they're going to sell it at some later date or something. But yeah, SPI wasn't very happy about that. SPI, on the other hand, did, when I crossed their roads and did stuff with the trail, they were happy to grant permission to do that, not build any trails, though they didn't bounce to that at all. And that whole thing, that's all SPI land up there. That's it.
Right around where the boat ramp is Forest Service, and that's where.
Oh, yeah, I know, but to hike gives you the impression that you're gonna go someplace. So if you leave the boat ramp and go uphill, you're going towards SPI land.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. Okay, Todd, anything else on your long list of discussion points there? Anything you want to?
That pretty much covered those agenda topics.
Okay. Last call. Questions for Todd or Tara?
I just want to say thank you, Todd. Nothing like coming into a meeting.
Yeah.
And getting all the questions. So
I was hoping they'd ask me some questions about, the new Eagle Nest by Captain's Point or something like that.
That's more in your wheelhouse, huh?
I doubt we'll be seeing Todd again.
You got any cameras on that nest? That helps.
I had a question, Todd. Are you a temporary assignment here or are you working permanently under Sarah?
Yeah, I work permanently under Sarah. She's just out of town.
Couldn't be here. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And I know last month, she was on a detail for 4 months. And,
Right.
last month, her daughter was very sick in the hospital, actually. So
Yeah.
I think, it's just kind of bad timing for her not to be here, but hopefully she can make the next one.
Yeah, well, thank you
Okay,
for
well,
being here, Todd, and
happy you're here.
yeah, bringing
We'll
us.
probably see you again.
Yep.
All right. And before we move on to the next, Jack, I've been remiss. You've joined us and did not give you opportunity to introduce yourself. So why don't you go ahead? I know everybody knows you, but.
I'm so. My name is Jack Leinhardt. I'm Recreation Program Manager for the Watershed Center.
All right, thank you, Jack. Okay, up next, action item follow-up. Forest Road 17, the IP road. Who's got that one?
Mike's, I didn't steal your thunder.
Okay.
Well, I went out and had a look and then I talked to some folks and it's on the radar for the Mount Shasta district has got a contract on it.
Okay.
And they're gonna be planning to this summer, not just the brush along the road, but they're gonna get some timber on either side. They're gonna try to improve it to be a little bit of a fuel break, but also reopen up the places where the rocks are on the road, because you know, if we need firefighters moving through there, it's pretty hazardous and obviously it's not very nice for the general public either. So it's on their radar and they have a plan and they've gone through the processes and they plan to implement this summer.
Awesome.
Where is that road?
From the base of the climb up to the top of Scott Mountain over to Weed.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's the IP road.
yeah, the IP road.
That NEPA is available on our website, our external website. I believe it's called the Parks Trinity Project. So you can look up kind of that footprint and what they're planning on doing. Just check it out online.
Very good. Thank you, Mike.
Just out of curiosity, question for the Forest Service folks, with regard to the kind of more, you know, as we've been working towards more activity with the Trinity Headwaters project and all that stuff with the Watershed Center and all that. And asks like this, do we as facilitators need to try to reach out more directly to Mount Shasta to deal, like have them, like pull them in directly, or are you guys okay with sort of covering those bases?
I think that we should have an announcement for who the new ranger will be. Probably early next week. And then once we get that person in place, I highly recommend that they start to engage with Trinity County as well, especially with the projects that are coming up. I know there's a lot of interest around the headwaters. I know there's some of the meadow work that we want to do up there. So, and also the footprint of the gosh darn it, Sierra Nevada Conservancy pops in up there. So it would just make good sense for the new ranger to start to engage a little bit on this side. So that's on my radar as well, Kelly. I think this is a good time to talk about it because we will have a new ranger starting, I think by the end of the month.
Cool.
Is it, you know, we have the TRMU, SFMU, all that. What's that district called? Is it just the Mount Shasta?
That's just to keep you on your toes. It's we call it the SHMU, but it actually there's no it's the SMMU, Shasta McLeod Management Unit. So they combined the Mount Shasta Ranger District with the McLeod Ranger District and made the SMU. But we just call it the SHMU because it's sounds better. Who wants to be the SMU?
Shasta McLeod.
Is there a road program manager over on the SMU?
Is there a what? What was the question?
There a roads program manager over there? Just because the Watershed Center's been doing a bunch of road decommissioning on SPI land in and around that area. So I'm wondering if we might be able to connect if there is a roads program manager on that district.
Most of our roads program management is just out of the SO at this point. And so go to Stephen, and then under Stephen Fromm's shop is Tyson Curran, I think is his name. So we'll make sure that you get tied in with him. He's kind of doing our transportation planning work on the forest. Now, I do think that Carolyn had some engineering support in the form of Larry Alexander, I think is his last name, was kind of tucked away over there. But as far as transportation planning, that would be out of the SO.
Cool.
Great, thank you, Tara.
Yep.
Kelly, it'd be nice to get maybe a briefing as to what is transpiring up there in that upper watershed from Cal, Michigan to the Forest Service or wherever it ends up.
My understanding, and you know, maybe Jack knows a little more about this, but from my discussions with Nick, the land transfer of all the Mish-Cal lands that are up there, about 11,000 acres, is going to be happening like around June of this year. So they're not, I mean, the Watershed Center is going to be the new land managers of all of that land. Is that accurate? He was saying something like June-ish. That
The date is definitely news for me, but as far as background on the project, that pretty much nails it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that might be worth doing, I think, because there is obviously, you know, that's all sort of away from the, you know, the wilderness areas, but there are a lot of recreational kind of opportunities, and there's been some trail stuff with the what is it, the Sis-Callahan Trail?
The Sisson-Callahan, this is
Sisson.
actually something I was gonna touch on a bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just because of the potential up there for recreation,
Oh.
outside the wilderness, you got Bull Lake, Slide Lake, Mirror Lake, Masterson.
Yeah,
You've got
there's
Cliff Lake.
like
all-
40 miles of trails up there that, you know, the only stuff that's actually utilized regularly right now is the PCT.
Yeah, right. So
At
anyway,
least as
like,
far as within our watershed.
yeah. Some of those road systems, it'd be good to not put them completely to bed, that especially going into Bull and Slide and Mirror Lake, be awful night. And it's locked up, has been locked up for years. And anyway,
Okay.
nice to know what's going on.
Yeah, that for sure. Thanks, Pete.
All righty. Up next, Trinity River Festival. What can we do to help? Who's gonna lead that?
So this was just in the notes. It was something that Pat Frost had mentioned
Yep.
because he noticed it as like one of the upcoming events.
Yeah.
And I haven't followed up on any of that. So he had proposed to, you know, maybe that's something that this group should take on as a.
And who's orchestrating that? I mean, who's?
It was one of the river guides. I was my understanding. It's
Trinity River-
it's
Is that
in,
Trinity River rafting?
Wasn't this in the newspaper this week or?
I could probably fill you in on a little bit of it. There was a river guide that was killed in a boating accident, and his family has been establishing some river festivals in that individual's favorite places to boat. And the Trinity River was one of those places. And they plan to have kayak race from Pigeon Point to the Hell's Hole, I think is where it's gonna end the race, but obviously they're not gonna drag the boats up the cut bank to the highway there. They're gonna keep going down to the big flat. But and then they're gonna do some type of other little rodeo type stuff down closer to Big Flat. They got a special use permit. It's almost completed. They're gonna need to, you know, add some plastic outhouses, and we're gonna be flagging off areas so that they don't just plug the entire parking lot at Pigeon Point, that type of thing. We're gonna try to make it to where it's all equitable and everybody can have a good time and nobody gets shut out. But I think it's gonna work.
Cool. That's happening this summer?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. And my biggest concern was nothing to do with us. My biggest concern was spectators on the highway
Exactly.
dashing across the road playing Frogger. And they sound like they also are very concerned with that, and they're gonna be trying to do shuttles rather than having people doing it. And they're gonna have most of their spectators, they're gonna encourage them to boat into the areas of the most excitement so that they're on the bank, not on the road. So they're also very concerned with people getting squashed and having another memorial next year for squash people. So
Okay.
that's what I know about it.
Who's
Probably
the,
half off, but half on anyway.
who's the best contact person for that?
I don't have, I can get you the name of the individual, but are you looking for the special use permit administrator or the people that are promoting the event?
People promoting the event, because, you know, folks like Jesse Pike are really hot to trot about getting a shuttle service in place, you know, mostly for mountain biking, but also potentially for the Alps, potentially for running shuttles for rafters, that type of thing. So, you know, if they're in need of more shuttle service, then I'm sure that Jesse would be super keen on, you know, especially promoting a new business at the same time.
What the event's gonna be held through the Bigfoot property. So managers of the Bigfoot rafting company, that'd probably be your best.
The best.
touch bases with them. Cool.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Anything else, Kelly?
I don't know, I guess Pat's point was just more to like whether there was anything that we could do to like collectively, I guess, to help, I guess, promote it or support it in some fashion. So I'm not sure.
Sounds like they've got the permitting they need and,
Yeah, and this is their first year, so
yeah.
they do intend to have it as an annual type of thing, so.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Well, and this, ties in with that proposal by the Board of Supervisors. I forget its name, from downriver years ago that was talking about putting, concrete in the river to make these rapids and
Standing
make a
waves.
part. Yeah,
Sarah
yeah,
Brown
yeah.
Brown was supporting
Yeah.
that.
Interesting idea.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, anything on Bowerman Barn update?
Oh, I can do one unless nobody else is doing one.
I got a little bit of information, but you go first and I'll fill in anything that, I just got some info from Pete Schmidt.
Oh,
Okay, so, I guess last meeting, we showed you guys the pictures of the extension of the trail and the interpretive sign that have been installed. We're still trying to figure out the $75,000 that we got from the RAC. We can't spend that money on actually repairing the foundation until the engineering study's done. The engineering study, roughly 20 to 22,000. So, I met with the Historical Society to see if they would apply to the McConnell Foundation for that money. The McConnell Foundation said, they could not fund planning. They like to fund actually implementation. So, the way we are right now, I've been talking to Monique, is that, next week at the RAC meeting, Pete would submit a, amended proposal where that the first 20,000 roughly out of that 75,000 would be used to do the engineering study. And then develop a cost. And then the McConnell Foundation has said that they are willing to fund the balance. So once we know essentially how much the total foundation repair would cost, then McConnell was very, very positive as far as funding the balance that we would need. The trick is going to be that the applicant is going to be the Historical Society. They've agreed to apply for the money from McConnell. But that means we need some sort of participation agreement then between the Historical Society and the Forest Service. I haven't convinced the Historical Society to do that yet. Anyway, that's kind of where we're headed, is trying to get that money initially for an engineering study and then come up with the way to fund the balance of the repair using whatever we need from the McConnell Foundation. That sound what you got, like what you got, Todd?
Yeah, that's very much in alignment with what I got. Yeah, I think Pete has submitted the proposed changes to the RAC for that. I think it's close to 21,000 something. But yeah, to be able to use that money for the engineering and the plans, and then try to supplement that part with some McConnell Foundation grant in the future. So yeah, sounds in alignment.
all right. Thank you, Carol. Any questions for Carol? Or Todd? Seeing none? Moving on to GAOA. Any updates there?
I don't know, usually that was something that back in the day was something that Sally would usually report out on, so I don't know if you're aware of that or have been tracking.
I think our GAOA projects have worked out and we're in between projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was requested that we leave it on as a standing item just in case things were percolating.
Yep. Okay, partner updates. Don't see Amanda. Any report from her, Kelly? Let me know. Okay.
Anything from?
Okay. Trinity Trails. Any?
It's you, Jack. You're on the
There we
board.
go.
Spokesperson. So I'll switch hats. Trinity Trail Alliance, the LaGrange race is coming up, which is super exciting. It's the biggest fundraiser that we hold each year. We are definitely soliciting for volunteers at the moment. There's many, many positions available, and it takes many, many hands to make this event happen. It's still, yeah, as I said, the biggest fundraiser, hoping to make some movement on phase 2 of our bike park with some of that funding. So if anyone is interested in volunteering, it's a really good time. Just come up to me afterwards and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction as far as that goes. Ingra Smith is the race commissioner this year, and she has been absolutely crushing it. You know, vast improvements even over last year, which is awesome. There's going to be what they're calling a gold digger passport, which is going to be like a bunch of coupons from local businesses. So if you get to sign up to race, then you get coupons to spend at local businesses, discounts, ice cream type of thing. Yeah, so kind of another incentive to bring people in and keep on spending money all throughout the county.
It's a good idea. I read about it on Facebook.
Mhm. Yeah, no, they're pretty proud of that one. And I'm gonna touch on the single track summit in a second here, but the gold digger passport, they're also gonna be printing out extra coupons for attendees of the single track summit. So anyone who shows up for that will get a little packet of vouchers, basically. We just voted in some new board members. So Alan Siegmiller, who has been chair of the organization for the last 6 years, timed out of his position. So now Patrick Flynn has taken over as chair. I'm still sitting as vice chair. Allison, Smith, Allison Smith, thank you, has taken over as secretary. Stephanie Kormeyer is still treasurer, but there's potential that Jay Ruiz will be moving into that position. Leslie Hubbard is still one of our members at large, and Chad Abel is still one of our members at large. I believe that we're still gonna have one position available if Stephanie does not step into a member at large position. So we will have a full board, which is pretty exciting. Of course, members of the public are always welcome at board meetings to bring up new projects that, you know, we're always going to support a good project. So, you know, if there's a desire for, you know, some new trails over at Trinity Center, like that's a super cool idea. But, you know, if people are building social trails out there, we want to make sure that they are doing it, you know, correctly and going through all the procedures, of course. So if they need some support from an advocacy organization like TTA, you know, maybe we can help move things forward in a legal way, so to speak. We just helped, well, the Watershed Center and Trinity Trail Alliance worked with the composite mountain bike team to hold a volunteer day on CB Ditch Trail. We had 14 people out there for a few hours, and it's really looking beautiful out there. Mike mentioned the boulder that we plowed through. It's like the best project I've been. It's so much fun. But that's more of a Watershed Center thing.
I just want to throw a pitch in for that CV trail. It is amazing. It is an old
It's
ditch,
super pretty.
big trees along it. And I mean, it is just a really wonderful walk, bike, hike, ride, whatever you do. I've been taking my dogs up there. It's just gorgeous, you know, it's can't say enough nice things about that trail.
It's awesome.
Yeah, well, where is it?
So, yeah, if you go up
Up there.
easiest access, now you can do, well, right now, the river crossings on East Weaver are gonna be probably enough to sweep any person away right now. But if you want to access it, to check it out, it's not fully opened yet, because as Mike mentioned, that little section of SPI is still some pretty sloppy soil with this awesome winter we've been having so far. But as soon as that dries out, it's gonna be like 2 days worth of construction.
So if you were to go up Misery, the old road there,
Yeah,
you'd come to that ditch before you get to the shoulder. That ditch that goes up one side of the creek, and then you propose to use that ditch and come down the other side to the Grange ditch.
Currently, you got the East Weaver Lake Trail that runs right up the drain.
Yeah,
Sweepstakes comes down into
right.
Weaver Lakes. Sweepstakes crosses CV, so now there's a junction onto CV that comes out at the top of Misery or Bradbury bypass.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call that. And then the next stage, which these guys have started the brush out, I believe, is the LaGrange extension. From the end of the LaGrange ditch where the siphon splashed across.
Right up the creek on Contour,
It's gonna go, yeah, it's a 0% grade.
and then cross and come down on Contour.
It'll, at the top of the LaGrange extension, it ties back into the East Weaver Lake Trail. And then it uses the East Weaver Lake Trail for 100 yards.
or something.
Yeah.
And then it goes across. So it's adding 2 new parallel routes to the center line route that's been there forever, which is the East Weaver Trail.
Yeah,
Is that,
yeah, that's
if you,
and how many miles do you think?
CV Ditch Trail is a mile, pretty much right on the nose.
Yeah,
And so if you start your walk like from the end of East Weaver Creek Road, then you can end up going like, middle of summer when the water levels are lower, you can effectively walk up East Weaver Lake Trail and then come back CV Ditch and go back down the bypass.
yeah.
It'll end up being, probably 3 miles or so. And it's a really nice loop, of course, in the middle of summer when it's 110 degrees in town, it's like 80.
You could just cross the bridge across
Yeah,
Beaver Creek and go up the other side of the bridge, yeah.
and so.
And you don't have to come down the 12 switchbacks off the Grange.
Yeah.
It gives you an option.
12.
Oh, I've fallen in each one.
Super steep, terrible switchbacks.
They're more than 12.
Yeah.
And that section is going to disappear. We're not leaving it. That's a fact.
And that's
It connected through that terrible stack of switchbacks on private property is going.
it's on SPI land, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. If anyone else is interested in coming out and volunteering with Trinity Trail Alliance outside of the LaGrange race, TTA is going to be working with the Watershed Center to do like a 3rd Saturday of each month volunteer day, wherever their needs work. Usually it's going to be, since we're working directly with the Watershed Center. Also, if the RCD has projects out on the trails, we're happy to support those as well as always. Yeah, so if anyone is interested, we're gonna be trying to be more forward with our social media outreach and our email blasts to let everyone know when the volunteer days are actually happening, so that as many people can join in as possible. Anyone have questions related to TTA before I jump over to Watershed Center topics? Sweet. Watershed Center stuff. Yeah, CV Ditch is awesome. Check it out. It's super cool. Yeah, really big tall trees. Some of the masonry projects that we've been doing out there are just really phenomenal. Blowing through that boulder. I mean, it took the better part of a month, but it was awesome to just be hanging out. Literally hanging harnessed in, roped into trees and just drilling into that rock. It was a phenomenal project. It's like one of the most complex 50 feet of trail I've ever built. But yeah, I think we ended up building like 80 to 100 feet worth of retaining wall lengthwise. Some of it was like 6 to 7 feet tall. It was pretty awesome. So please take a minute and enjoy. There's some historic rock structures out there that we kept in place, of course, because we don't want to disturb that are pretty phenomenal. And we added some to it to protect those features as well. So it's a really, really special trail. And it's all like northeast facing and in the shade, and it's going to be super cool. Mike mentioned that we've started on the brushing for the LaGrange extension. there are going to be some intermittent trail closures on East Weaver Lake Trail, simply because on that alignment for the range extension, it's pretty much directly above the trail for East Weaver Lake, and we definitely don't want rocks or rounds of trees rolling down on people. So we're gonna be putting up some signage, letting people know that there's gonna be intermittent trail closures. We are gonna be focusing our construction efforts on the stuff that's a little bit closer to town coming up here. The stuff that's gonna be like directly on the LaGrange race. Because the extension is not gonna be a part of the LaGrange race until it's done, of course. But, you know, stuff like 5 Cent Spur is on the LaGrange race, and we've got a plan to reroute for that. The Day Ranch Trail going down into Four Corners is part of the race, and we've got a reroute plan for that one. And our goal is to have both of those done before the race even happens this year, with time to spare is our goal. So yeah, kind of putting LaGrange construction on hold until this stuff that's, you know, more accessible to town is complete. We did, let's see, this kind of ties into what Carol was talking about having trails that are more accessible to Trinity Center, as well as the Sisson-Callahan Trail. We were awarded funding through the American Trails Legacy Roads and Trails grant opportunity. It's going to allow us to do some work on East Weaver Lake Trail to hit that missing piece that hasn't been logged out in quite a while. Folks have worked the East Weaver Lake Trail from the top, and they've worked the East Weaver Lake Trail from the bottom, but the middle is a bit of an adventure at the moment and not passable for horses, that type of thing. So we've got funding for a few weeks of work out there to reopen that trail and at least get a log out done. So hopefully we can make that happen, which would be pretty exciting. That grant also allows for work on the Sisson-Callahan. There's about 7 miles of trail that also hasn't been maintained in a long time. I was talking to Taylor Cole on the Shasta McLeod Management Unit. And she, after talking to a bunch of the partners out there, she doesn't think that section of trail has been touched in about 10-15 years. So we've got our work cut out for us on those 7 miles. We've seen some of it, and there's some user created trails to get around, like some wet meadows and sensitive habitat. You know, user created trails that some of them are better than others for sure, but we want to like maybe adopt some of the good ones, or maintain what exists on the ground, maybe do some surface hardening to protect those sensitive habitats as well. So we're super excited to get out there and do some of that, you know, open up access to that. The Shasta McLeod's ultimate goal with the Sisson-Callahan is to reconnect Lake Siskiyou over to Kangaroo Lake. And those 7 miles right in the middle are the missing piece right now. So pretty excited to make that happen this year. That funding is good until the end of 2025. So that'll be, got 6 weeks of funding to do 7 miles of trail maintenance out there. So hopefully over the course of this season and next, we can make a really big dent in that one.
Does it actually go to Callahan?
Once upon a time it did.
Yes. In the Pacific Crest Trail is right there.
Yep, but the Pacific Crest Trail is not open to bicycles.
No.
The Sisson-Callahan will be. Of course, like the ultimate goal of the Shasta McLeod is to have it be a little bit more of a rustic character. Whereas the current Sisson-Callahan coming down from the PCT saddle from like Deadfall Lakes, that's all like mountain bike optimized with berms and jumps and all that in there.
Yeah.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
They don't want that to happen. They want to keep the character of it feeling historic. They want to make it feel like you're in the wilderness, but without actually being in a wilderness area. So they want to keep it sporty. You know, you might get your feet wet on a couple of creek crossings. You might have to walk your bike across creek crossings. And that's kind of what they want to do. And it's really beautiful out there. If you haven't had a chance to check out some of those sections of trail, it's pretty awesome. So we'll definitely be promoting the heck out of that when we're actually out there doing some good work. Let's see, we've been working with Jim Dees to over on the 6 Rivers to do some maintenance on the Hay Fork Route Trail. It's a single track OHV going from South Fork Mountain down to Ruth Lake. Including the road section there, it's about 4 miles. And that one, we've been working with the wildlife biologist over there to try and figure out if there's still well, right now there's an LOP in place. The NCDC is going to be doing surveys out there to determine if there are still active owl nesting sites in that area, and that'll affect when we can actually go out there and do that work. So we're figuring out timing on that specifically. It was all through, like, that trail was heavily impacted by the August complex. So we will see if there are any active owl sites left when the surveys actually happen. We're also working with the 6 Rivers, supporting their YCC program, and our youth crews are going to be able to, well, our Hay Fork youth crew is going to be able to get out there with them for a week this summer and have a nice collaborative maintenance effort out there, which is going to be really cool. Help out with their project and see if get our kids over to the other side of the hill into a different part of the county, which is going to be super fun. Definitely the most like publicly exciting thing coming up is the Single Track Summit, which everyone in this room is invited to, and please invite your families. And this one is, we've invited mountain bike trail builders and maintainers from all over the region. So Northern California, Southern Oregon, Western Nevada, to come out into Weaverville. This will be the 3rd summit that's happened. Redding Trail Alliance hosted it back pre-COVID. Redwood Coast Mountain Bike Association hosted it over in Arcata last year, and we're hosting it this year with the intention that over the course of the next many years into perpetuity, that it can bop around between the different areas. So we've got, it's going to be May 3rd through 5th, so Friday through Sunday. The Friday is going to be kind of just a social mixture over at the brewing company. I'm going to be heading over there after this meeting to try and see if they want to do like a Taps for Trails event as a fundraiser to help us fund some of the maintenance as well as future construction out here.
Is the whole thing going to take place at the brewery, or?
No, the Friday mixer will take place at the brewery. The event itself on the Saturday is going to take place at the Veterans Hall. And that one's going to be all day Saturday, presentations in the morning, breakout sessions in the afternoon, and then a bike ride afterwards, followed by a social at the brewery, or sorry, a social at the Veterans Hall. There's going to be tabling from all of the organizations that are going to be showing up, which is super fun. And it's going to be a really good time. So the one over in Arcata last year was great. There were like 50, 60 people in attendance. Just with the folks that have RSVP'd so far, I've got 45 people on my lists. And if more people want to come, they're very much welcome. Just send me a quick note with how many people want to go so we can make sure we have enough chairs for everybody is the biggest thing. And if the RCD wants to be involved, that would be cool. If the RCD wants to put a like tabling would be really awesome as well.
Okay.
Megan was gonna reach out to Duncan today to see if there was some capacity to assist with the planning efforts for especially the social event would be really cool. It's sure to be pretty exciting. We've got, as far as presenters go, the Watershed Center, Redding Trail Alliance, California Mountain Bike Coalition, Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship is coming up to do a presentation. The Sierra Nevada Conservancy, International Mountain Bike Association is going to come and do a presentation as well. So there are some bigger names from Northern California, as well as nationally recognized names that are going to be coming out for this, which is really cool. We're super stoked. We're also going to be inviting some like bigger advocacy organizations for tourism, like Visit Reading and Visit California. We're inviting representatives from the Friesen Foundation, the McConnell Foundation, Trinity River Community Partners, just to reassure all of these different funding organizations that there is a lot of buy-in from a grander area besides just Trinity County for recreation and tourism. With the ultimate goal of the summit is to promote Northern California, Southern Oregon as a destination. So trying to continue promoting tourism as an economic driver, not as the only economic driver in the county, but as one thing that has been proven to be successful in other areas really similar to ours.
I'm sorry, did you mention who, do you have someone from the Forest Service?
Yeah.
Oh, Mike's our guy. All right.
Actually, there's gonna be a whole like Forest Service, or not just Forest Service, like a land manager panel.
Right.
So to speak,
Okay.
so.
LM and
Yeah, you know, Mike's on the panel, Monique's on the panel, David Hewitt from the Shasta McLeod is Mike's counterpart over there. I believe David Byers from BLM is gonna be part of that as well.
Okay.
And yeah, kind of with the intention of like, how can these partners, you know, more successfully interact with land management agencies? You know, maybe give some tactics, maybe give, you know, just suggestions, you know, it's really, yeah, kind of figuring out how, because a lot of the places on the coast don't necessarily work with land management agencies. It's a lot of private or county land that they're working on, but folks like us, that's like what our trails are on. You know, it's very little that's on private land. So yeah, some suggestions. Also, Andrew Pelkoffer from Trail Labs is going to be doing a presentation as well, talking about their gateway project over at Mount Shasta. It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be pretty fun. I'm really excited to network with a whole bunch of folks out there and create some good connections. And yeah, it'll be grand. And then, so that's the Saturday. The Sunday is going to be, we're calling it bike ride with the trail builders. So it'll be like Watershed Center and Reading Trail Alliance are going to be leading the shuttle ride from Sweepstakes, CV Ditch, Jackass, Blue Black Lead, try and hit most of the new construction. And again, try and get people out there and promote Sweepstakes, which is like the most unique trail that we have to offer in Trinity County for sure. So I think that's all I got.
Okay, Jack. Any questions for Jack? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Okay, got a few minutes left here. Kelly?
I'll try to make this quick.
Okay.
Thanks, Jack. That was awesome. Let's see. Yeah, as Mike had mentioned, our crews have been working through the winter on mostly on wear ditch and dealing with tree mitigation along that stretch of trail. We are going to be finalizing. Oh, we're proud to and happy to mention that we got the Weaverville Community Forest sign put up on Musser and Highway 3. So that is very visible as people coming into town from the North Lake area. So that's pretty exciting. We will be doing a kiosk that's our final deliverable on our RAC Weaver Basin Trail System funding project that will be at Mackenzie Gulch, at the Mackenzie Gulch Trailhead. So I probably need to connect with you, Mike, to make sure that we have you know, the location that I'm thinking of is going to be appropriate, just off of that little parking area there. And we have a sign designer that's like on as our like IT person, and he basically did the whole design for the Weaverville Community Forest signs, and he's also gone out now and will be reproducing the kiosks that I think we originally created for all the major trailheads within the Weaver Basin Trail System. And I know that we were wanting that we've been talking with you about potentially like having a like set of plans so that we can reproduce that at any trailhead location that we want to put those, like at the top of sweepstakes, for example. So he's intending to do a set of plans while he actually builds the thing. He's got all the specs and everything. We've got the materials already in hand. So while he's building the thing, he's gonna basically essentially create a set of directions for how we can reproduce that in the future, wherever we want within the base and trail system. So the intent will be that we'll have that done by early to mid-May so that it's in place prior to LaGrange Classic. We were asked by the BLM to do some campground maintenance and cleanup. They've come to us to assist, provide some bodies to do some of that work in their campgrounds, including Steel Bridge, Douglas City and Junction City. So we'll be working on that with them, getting those prepped with the anticipated dates for those campgrounds opening up somewhere in the latter part of April. So that'll be coming up probably this month or early in April. I'm trying to think. I know that we're gonna have a lot of log outs to do because I've been doing a lot of hiking around on Mackenzie Gulch and a few other spots where there's trees that have kind of been falling here and there. So I'm sure that we'll be sending guys out to deal with that as they're sort of becoming more apparent with all the snow and everything that we've had over the past month. So we'll be addressing those issues within the trail system. And then we are currently discussing and talking about the potential Loudon Meadows project that we're going to probably be seeking funding for through the Wildlife Conservation Board. We've been in discussions with both the Department of Water Resources, which own the Hamilton Ponds area within the Loudon Meadows, which is along Old Lewiston Road, as well as the BLM piece. There's an old gazebo out there. We want to make sure that we can tie in some trails and potentially do an equestrian loop around the meadows areas, potentially looking at doing a raised boardwalk through or adjacent to the wetlands portion of the meadows. So we have some ideas going on with that. Hopefully this will be a planning project. So we'll be reaching out if they've asked us to do a pre-proposal and likely to be followed up by a full proposal. And it'll be a planning project, which would include NEPA and CEQA on those two pieces of property, as well as, lots of outreach to the community to try to figure out what exactly they're looking for. And we've had some contact with some people that live in the neighborhood. And so we're kind of excited about that. It's sort of a longer term project.
As it relates to the Hamilton Ponds, is there any kind of O&M plan or program so that's just kind of like.
The upper pond is pretty much filled in.
Correct.
Those two ponds, for those that don't know this, but history of this, but the Hamilton ponds were basically catchment basins for Grass Valley Creek that were created during the big restoration effort in the 90s and early 2000s. We were doing OEM probably out there until about 2010-ish, meaning we would go out, get an excavator in there and then scoop out the ponds. And there was an upper pond and a lower pond. The upper pond since then has completely filled in because there was issues with lamprey actually being existent in the pond itself and in the creek. There is now a resident beaver that's kind of like between the two ponds at this point. So because of that, we stopped doing O&M on those. And so the top one is now completely filled in. The lower one is now sort of a nice, you can go and fish in there and do, there's access to it now. And it's pretty much stabilized as
But to your knowledge, there's no intention moving forward to use it as it was originally built as a sediment trap.
Nope.
My understanding, there's a pretty good plume now below the mouth of Grass Valley into the river.
If that's the case, it might be due to the fact that there's the crossing that goes into the IOOF area, like that crossing has failed entirely.
I can see them working on it now.
Yeah, and so that road now is completely gone. Like, so that's probably why there's something happening there currently. I think it had sort of stabilized prior to that, but the short answer is that wasn't going to be built into this and that there wasn't any real, they were, as far as DWR was concerned, they're kind of done. But now with that being a potential issue, we may have to revisit that. So, but I think with that, like I said, it's meant to be a planning project. And then once we kind of get everything sort of in order, engineering and would be built into that for any potential features and stuff that we were talking about doing. Then we would go after, we'd secure additional funding for actual implementation of that project down the road. So this is kind of a longer term project for us.
Very good.
And I think that's it for my report out currently.
I
Thank you
got
very much.
a question.
Yeah.
On these signs at the trailhead, is there anything that mentions that you're riding on Norel Muck ancestral lands or something?
So I have been in contact with Tracy and Cindy at the Norelmuck, and they've provided us with some place names that we'll be including in the in like any future like actual produced mapping. And I think that would probably be wise for us to sort of move in that direction, and we have every intention of doing that. We're working actively with the Norelmuck now, doing like high school, Sustainable Forestry Institute. It's I can't remember, is SFI something or other, but it's basically, we're working with them now and taking out high schoolers and stuff and talking about all of those. And we just had our first one yesterday. There's two more that are coming up in the fairly near future. But so, yeah, there's been a lot of collaboration with the Norelmuck to do that. So that is our intent, yes.
I think we should at least have a nod to the original landowners.
For sure. Yeah, agreed.
Okay, any questions for Kelly? Seeing none. Other topics? Not seeing any. Agenda building, any agenda items that anybody wants to see in our next meeting? Other than what we kind of standard, kind of the template?
And the things that people are gonna check on that.
Sure,
that they're
yeah,
working on.
we'll capture kind of the minutes,
Right.
things that we anticipate some follow-up being
We'll be
needed.
deep into campgrounds and boat ramps and everything by then.
Yep. Okay.
We haven't heard about the trail around the lake here very much lately.
Well, Robbie was here last time. Remember?
Yeah, he gave us a fairly in-depth.
They were gonna start in Lewiston. Doing some things on the Lewiston Trail or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
we will officially adjourn. Thank you very much for all your participation, contribution.
Thank you.
Thanks, all.
Everybody. Thanks for coming over, Todd. Good to be in here.
Yeah. Almost think that does need to happen on.
Okay, understood.
Campground usage. That website is super old.